Thank you very much, Chair Britt, and I look forward to working with you and Ranking Member Murphy in this Congress. Madam Secretary, as Senator Murphy mentioned in his opening statement, Secretary Noem, under your leadership, we have seen you ignore our appropriation laws, our Constitution, common sense, and even basic humanity. And like a lot of Americans, I really have been horrified by the lawlessness and incompetence and cruelty that we have all witnessed. And for all the
Hey folks, welcome back to America Briefs, where we stand for freedom, law, and the Constitution. Today, we're talking about the latest dust-up between Senator Patty Murray and Secretary Kristi Noem, and let me tell you, it's a perfect snapshot of everything wrong with D.C. politics right now.
And for all the talk about going after criminals, you have sidetracked DHS staff who are investigating drug dealers, terrorists, human traffickers, and rather than photo ops, we need more of your focus on providing basic diligence, because your crackdown has roped in American citizens and people who are here legally with no criminal record. Now, I'm not going to ask you whether that was right or wrong. I know it's wrong. The world knows it's wrong. And I think the first thing the history is going to say about your leadership is that you were responsible for many of these travesties. So I'm deeply concerned. You've deported a 4-year-old U.S. citizen with cancer. You've disappeared people to a notorious prison in El Salvador. And you have spent $100 million in taxpayer dollars to air TV ads thanking President Trump. That is really reckless. It's unacceptable, and in my opinion, can't continue. The American people are paying for this with our taxpayer dollars and with their most basic rights. Now, in the last 3 months, you have frozen or canceled over $100 billion in funding that was approved by Congress, bipartisan. We are talking about everything from disaster relief to grants that keep people safe. But when my staff has requested information on the status of this unacceptable holdup, the department failed to provide any acceptable justification. This illegal freeze, and it is illegal, is taking a real toll on communities who are waiting on the investments that Congress has delivered. So will you commit to immediately unpausing these funds?
Well, Senator, thank you for covering a lot of topics there. Let me touch on a few of those right away.
Well,
what the Trump administration is doing is enforcing the law for the first time. Under the Biden administration,
I'm asking you about the funds.
Illegal aliens were prioritized over American citizens. Now the scales of justice have been leveled, and
Madam
no one
Chair,
is treated better than anyone else.
I asked you a
Citizens are
question.
Treated the same,
Madam
and these
Secretary,
illegal aliens and criminals
answer.
are being
I heard
deported.
it previously. I'm asking you a specific
The grants
question.
that you are referencing,
Correct.
the grants that you are referencing have been paused and reevaluated to make sure that they are truly being spent in the way to which they were appropriated.
Well,
many of these grants were being diverted into things they were never intended.
These funds were passed on a bipartisan basis by members.
Absolutely, and the Biden
Congress.
administration perverted them in how they used them, diverted them to facilitate illegal immigration, to house people in places like the Roosevelt Hotel, who held illegal criminals that took the life
Madam
of
Chair,
Laken
about
Riley.
$100
I think all of us
billion.
have
It is not credible to me that all the
people who have
recipients
died
of
and
that.
lost their children because
Madam
of this
Secretary,
situation.
it is not credible. Madam Chair, it is not credible that $100 billion is used to break the law. That just cannot be true. And let me change this a little bit. On the other hand, I am very concerned that DHS is now dramatically overspending funding that Congress has not provided. If you were a CEO doing that, I don't think you'd be in your job long. We need accountability and we need answers, and that includes informative responses to oversight questions sent to the department over the last 3 months. I am ranking member on this committee. I have worked with every member of this committee. We take our responsibility serious to fund your department and others. We need to have answers. We need to have accountability, and we need to make sure you're not overspending money that you were not allocated.
Well, thank you for that question. I will be very
really
clear
a
in the
question,
fact.
it's a statement.
Do you want me to respond?
Well, you can.
Well, I've worked many jobs in my life, but I also have been a CEO. I've run
I'm not
businesses. I've been a
questioning your
governor.
credentials. I'm
and
questioning
it is,
your spending.
We are prioritizing where our security needs are in this country, and we are hoping that this body will agree that reconciliation is necessary to address the things that have been neglected in this country for too long, that we have the technology upgrades, the manpower upgrades that are necessary. So the $170 billion request for the Department of Homeland Security is
Chair,
incredibly
my time is
important
running
to make
out,
sure we have the
I do have a
tools that
couple
we
of
need.
additional questions. The fact is that you've not been given this funding. Saying that it's going to come in reconciliation that has not passed is not an acceptable answer. I did want to ask about FEMA and disaster relief. This is really important. A lot of disaster relief has been politicized. You've endorsed eliminating FEMA outright. We have seen an upheaval at FEMA that is going to put lives in jeopardy. 1 in 5 FEMA employees have been pushed out, taking this administration's so-called buyout offer. We are losing indispensable staff just weeks away from fire and hurricane season, and over $100 billion in disaster relief and FEMA grants are still being held up. DHS is making it a lot harder to qualify for relief, something people in my home state of Washington are experiencing firsthand. Multiple requests from governors have been rejected in recent weeks, including a request from our state. And we haven't been given any response about this. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, has President Trump directed you to prioritize funding for Republican states?
Absolutely not.
Have you directed your staff to prioritize funding to Republican-led states over Democratic
Absolutely
states?
not.
Have your
Under this administration, there will not be any politicization of support, relief, FEMA assistance, or grants given based on politics.
Well,
every single person will be treated the same. It will be very different than the Biden
Madam Secretary, there's a clear trend of Republican-led states getting very fast responses and funding. Democrat-led states are being forced to wait. We have never treated FEMA as a partisan issue in this country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Now, Murray went off the rails accusing Secretary Noem of being, get this, inhumane and lawless. Why? Because the administration is actually trying to enforce immigration law and reevaluate how disaster relief funds are being spent. Let that sink in. They're mad because Noem is putting accountability before open wallet politics. She's up in arms about over $100 billion in grants and funds being frozen. But you know what? That money doesn't come out of thin air, it's taxpayer dollars. Our dollars. We have a duty to make sure it's not being funneled into waste, fraud, or political kickbacks. Noem's absolutely right to hit pause and make sure it's being used for real emergencies, not just to score political points. That's what leadership looks like. Noem didn't back down. She made it clear, enforcing the law isn't optional, and every state will be treated fairly. No special treatment for red states, no punishment for blue ones, just equal application of the law. That's what we need in this country. Now let's talk about Murray's big talking point, the supposed deportation of a sick child who's a US citizen. If that actually happened the way she's spinning it, yeah, that'd be a problem. But you and I both know the left has a history of emotional manipulation and cherry-picking stories to make conservatives look heartless, when the facts usually tell a very different story. Murray even accused FEMA of being politicized, while demanding more money for Democrat-run states that can't manage their own budgets. That's projection if I've ever seen it. She's upset because under Noem and the current administration, we're not writing blank checks to cities that defund the police and ignore federal law. At the end of the day, this is about whether we're going to keep letting the federal government spend recklessly, or if we're finally going to demand accountability and integrity. Noem is taking a stand. She's putting law and order, fiscal sanity, and fairness over emotion and political theater. And for that, she's getting attacked. If you believe in secure borders, responsible spending, and equal treatment for all Americans, not just the ones who vote blue, then it's time to stand up and speak out. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video if you're tired of the left twisting every issue into a crisis just to grab more power. This is our country. Let's fight for it, with facts, faith, and the Constitution in hand.